Nathan Caldwell, kindness. Such a simple thing. I've known Nathan for a while now, and he wrote a book, Empowering Kindness, and it just seems so simple. But he talks. His book is part art and part science. In the business world, how leaders can just be better leaders with kindness. He talks about in society how kindness goes a long way, and how he cites these studies of how physically it helps people. How it could just make you healthier. Again, it's an simplification, but it's really profound and really simple. I do ask him how discipline comes into it. I think you'll be surprised by his answer. How he found his way to kindness through his father. We talk about random acts of kindness and are they really, kindness? Very interesting. The studies he cites. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think everybody can learn just a little bit from it and how to just extend that kindness and just be better. Also, self kindness. All too often we see people who really need to be kind to themselves. We talk about obesity and overweight issue here, pandemic, let's call it. I don't know what you want to call it. The terrible issue. The way most Americans, 75%, are overweight or obese. But kindness. Nick Lowe said it best, cruel to be kind. Do you think that's true? I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Nathan Caldwell. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business and it lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. I'm very excited to talk to you, Nathan. Nathan, is this the best time, do you think, that we, the world, our society needs kindness?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's never a time where it's not needed. It's extremely important for everyone in their lives.
Yes, and that is your theme. That is your theme, Nathan. I've known you for a long time, and I've enjoyed it. I kind of wrestle with kindness is seems ambiguous to some people. How do we quantify it? How do you go into great depth, and you have studies in your book and examples, and well, let's talk about that shortly. But um, how do you quantify kindness? How do you
Well, I
measure it?
really take it in a, yeah, I kind of define it in a few different ways. So, kindness between individuals is doing something for someone to help them without expecting anything in return. That's on an
Mm.
individual level. On a team level, it's working together, depending on each other to not only accomplish a goal, but also celebrate in the victory together and share that win. Then, when you're a leader, it's taking a look at your team and understanding or working hard to elevate all of them, help them grow, help them learn, remove obstacles from their path, and then also share the credit with them so that they can become more accomplished. And,
Hmm.
I think about kindness as the number one trait that a leader should possess, because leaders are leaders of people. Without the people, you're not a leader. And so you should be rated or tracked, or your metric should be how well do your people grow. And you can see, great leaders are the ones who you look to and you're like, wow, everybody on their team is like rocking and rolling. They're accomplishing great stuff. They're always getting promoted. They've grown so much while they've been there on that team. This is so amazing. And then you have a bad leader who is like the one who pushes people out of the way so that they can advance, and you just see the trail of
Hmm.
bodies that they leave behind. And so that's kind of the different elements that I consider when speaking about kindness. The importance of the trait is really putting it into context so that people don't walk away thinking, well, kindness is just being nice. And I can never have a confrontational discussion with somebody. I can never criticize or offer constructive feedback to somebody because I don't want to come across as being unkind. Well, a
Hmm.
lot of times, though, constructive feedback is the way you can be the kindest to people, because then you're delivering a message that helps them improve, helps them grow. But you also want to do it in a tactful way. I get that. Niceness is part of it, but it's not just where it starts and ends.
Yeah, it's really well said. And what if a person's particular personality is one that's a bit more direct and could be off-putting for others, but they genuinely feel that they're being kind? I mean, you have these kinds of clashes here. How do you address that?
Well, I think that everybody should be concerned with their communication styles.
Hmm.
And the way that I talk about communication is I use the example of giving somebody a birthday present. Whenever you're giving somebody a birthday present, you want it to be something that they will receive, that you have thought about that person in particular and what they would want, how they would want to receive that message. And then you tailor it to their ways. There's so many personality books out there. One of my favorites is Make a Difference by Dr. Larry Little, and he classifies it into 4 different animal characters. And we'll just real quick, one's a lion, one's a monkey. The monkey is the one who likes to have a lot of fun. The lion is the one who, like you put it, is very direct and commanding and would come into the room and be like, hey, everybody, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And so, what Dr. Larry Little talks about, though, is that a powerful leader is somebody who is capable of going outside of their emotional quadrant. So, the lion going outside of their emotional quadrant and understanding where the monkey is coming from. The monkey is the one who likes to have a little bit more fun, may at times come off as immature, but at the same time, they're the ones who help break the tension in the room. They're the ones who get people to open up a little bit more, be a little more vulnerable, because they can draw out the personal side of things, whereas the lion typically doesn't. And so for the lion to go outside their emotional quadrant and be a little more informal when they're speaking with the monkey about something that is very important. And there's great examples of these types of conversations where instead of going head on to the topic at hand, you say, "Hey, I need to sit down with you. I got to tell you a story." So there was this one person, and they were taking care of this lamb, and they really cared for it. It was a part of their family. And then, a rich person comes along and he has a million lambs, but instead he says to that one person, hey, I want your lamb. I'm going to take that from you.
Hmm.
And this is an example of this is from the Old Testament in the Bible, where the prophet Nathan goes to King David, and King David like isn't about to sit down and say, "Yeah, sure, tell me everything I'm doing wrong." but he gives them a story and says, hey, look, this is what's happening to this poor man. He only had a lamb. And then David like gets all mad and he's like, who is it? And the prophet says, David, you're the guy. You did that.
Hmm.
And so you're able to connect with people more when you go outside that emotional quadrant. And so I think that there is an element of, though, when you said it's there are some people who are direct. We need to be direct. We can't avoid the issues. Brene Brown, many other speakers. I don't know where the quote originated from, but Brene Brown is famous for having said it too. To be unclear is to be unkind.
Hmm.
So you don't want to go into a situation and be vague, not give people an understanding of where their shortcomings could possibly be. I'm sure you've been in those situations before. I know I've been in those conversations before where I walk out of the room thinking, I asked specifically, is there anything I can do to improve? Are there any issues with my performance? That sort of stuff. No, everything's great. Everything's great. Until like months later, then something surprises me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, where was it weekly when we sat down and we met and I asked for specifics on this? So to be unclear is to be unkind, but then also make sure that you're presenting it in a way where the receiver will also accept the message.
Yeah, I like that Brene Brown quote, and I think maybe Einstein said this: if you can't explain it to a 12-year-old, you don't really know it, or something like that. Uh,
I love that. I've said something similar. I call it the mother-in-law test.
ah,
Because I started at a job one time for a technology company and my mother-in-law didn't come to me and say, "Hey, what's this company you're working for? What's the types of things you do?" She just went to the company website and could not figure it out at all. And so my thing is, if it doesn't pass the mother-in-law test, if she can't figure it out just by looking at it or hearing it the first time, you have not explained it well.
and I'm also a fan of Larry Little, of course. We know this book and what we do, and the four kind of personalities: the turtle, the lion, the camel, and the monkey. And it goes along with DISC as well, with these personality assessments. So you kind of see, I remember the one, I was classified as a lion, and when you're working with a turtle, never tap on its shell and say to get out. You have to approach it very differently, and but you don't really equate kind of personality with kindness, because a personality is kind of separate. It's who you are, it's how you work with people. Kindness is, you kind of view it as something separate that each of us should take on regardless of our personality type.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a matter of, though, making kindness a part of your character.
Mm,
It's how you operate. You are looking to consider others in every situation. And in that aspect, then you would use kindness to figure out the personalities of your team because you want to know them. You want to know what motivates them.
mm.
You want to know what is a detractor of motivation as well, because that could be horrible if you walk into the room as a lion, like you're saying, and you got a team of turtles and they just like tuck their heads in their shells. They're like, stay away from that guy. Like, you can't possibly lead that team. And so then you learn to go outside your comfort zone and speak to them and say, "Hey, how's your family?" Like, you notice the family photos on their desk
Mm.
and you realize that, you know what? These people, they aren't going to want to stay an extra 2 hours for a happy hour when I'm the lion and I think that's a great celebration. They want to get home to their kids. And so instead of making them stay a couple extra hours, you say, you know what? Hey, I want you guys to take off at lunch, get home with your kids. Also, here's a gift card, take them out to dinner. I want you to be able to celebrate in the way that you want to celebrate. And those types of concepts of making sure kindness is part of your character, and then look at your people through that lens to consider how to motivate them or how to avoid demotivating them.
Yeah, very good. Because I'm from the Northeast, in the New York area, New York suburb, in New Haven, and there's a certain amount of back and forth that the Bostonians have, the New Yorkers have, and they kind of expect it, and it may not seem kind from the outside, but like somebody will say to me, "Hey, nice shirt. Where'd you get that?" And then my retort would be, "Who you, Ralph Lauren?" So if you don't kind of give it right back at that same pace, they won't. And from there they smile, and then you go on. Some of my best friends that I've had in my life, I initially had with, I fought with them as a 10 and 11-year-old, and here we are. So I think, when we talk about kindness, you talk about servant, leadership, and there's so many ways of showing it, but from others, they might not perceive it as such, but it really varies on the audience.
Oh, absolutely. And if you know that about yourself, be upfront about it.
Right.
Be clear. Say, hey, I used to coach public speaking and teach that. And I did it for many leaders in the technology industry, for people who normally are sitting behind a desk. And now they're like, how do I speak in front of 8,000 people
Mm.
and try to coach them through that? And so I knew about myself that when I concentrate or when I'm paying attention, I make this face. I furrow my brow
Mm.
and I have laser focus. And I know that about myself. That's the expression on my face because I'm concentrating, I'm focusing, I'm considering what they're saying, I'm thinking about how I'm going to provide constructive feedback for them. And so I tell them ahead of time, hey, look, I want you to see this face I'm making. This is me paying attention. I want you to, because when you're public speaking and you get up in front of somebody who's going to give you feedback and they have that look on their face, you're going to start getting inside your head and thinking, he doesn't like what I'm saying. Oh
Mm.
no. So setting that up from the get-go is vitally important. Plus, I'm not coming at this saying like, well, kindness is being weak or Canadian nice. Like I'm from Canada. I'll hold the door for like 10 minutes for you to get you in. Like, come on, come on.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
not what this is. Kindness is all about understanding what's going on with the other person and how can I best serve them? How can I best help them? How can I use my position to benefit them?
Hmm.
If you don't mind, I have a bit of an analogy that I
Please.
often use for this. I think of leadership as being a gigantic, healthy apple tree, where you, as the leader, are growing these apples for others to consume. No apple tree ever hoards the apples to themselves, they have no use for it. They want to develop food for others to consume so they can grow.
Hmm.
And another aspect of it is a leader, they have deep roots. They have all these connections that they can pull from to also help feed others. And so the idea of being that great leader who's tapped into kindness is always having that outlook of how can I benefit others? How can I help them grow? Because in that aspect, you're becoming more successful as a leader the more people you grow.
Very, very well said. I like that analogy a lot. And you make a differentiation between being kind and random acts of kindness.
Yeah, that's huge. So funny thing, I there is a random act of kindness day annually.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And I was speaking for the leaders of Dollywood on Random Act of Kindness Day. And so it's really funny for me to get up and, speak on that day, but also kind of say, that's not what it's about.
Mm.
Random acts of kindness, that's fun. Like that's great. I will never discourage that. But it isn't true kindness in the sense of what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about is the opportunity to use your relationship with another to help them grow. And that doesn't happen by just random acts of kindness. It doesn't work that way for a leader to be a detractor, as what we were talking about earlier, to be a detractor in somebody's or a demotivator, and then one day show up with donuts and be like, what? I got you donuts that one time. You should be thankful. It doesn't work that way.
Hmm.
Looking at the ongoing relationship, and I use examples in my book of the idea of, donations are great, but what's even better is building a relationship. If you're a technology company and you want to donate some computers to a school, that's great. What's even better is having volunteers go out on a regular basis and actually impact and influence and offer some wisdom, some guidance, open some people's eyes to new opportunities and learning something rather than just a donation. And so that idea of taking it to heart that yeah, random acts of kindness, those are fun, but you don't build that traction, you don't build that influence. It is impactful at times. It does elicit emotional responses, but you end up making a deeper impact in someone's life if you look at it from a standpoint of how do I build a relationship with this person.
Interesting. And we talk about kindness, just in thinking a lot about it. I was reminded of the of Mother Teresa in India, where she was there was homeless there were beggars there, and she was trying to help them. But of course the locals, they believe in reincarnation. They believe that they're there, those people that are homeless are there because of what they did in a previous life. They're punished purposely, and they spit on them and then treat them as low, whereas Mother Teresa has a Christian background and she was trying to help them. So there we have a complete clash of idealism, of what kindness is. So, what happens in that situation? Who wins there, Nathan? I know maybe that's above your pay grade, but I wonder what your response is to that.
No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely above my pay grade, but thankfully somebody did a study on that.
Did they?
So in 1988, there was a study done with Harvard students, and they split a class into two groups. And you brought up Mother Teresa. One of the groups watched a video of Mother Teresa doing just what she does, what she's known for, which is being kind to those who could not possibly repay her in any way.
Mm.
And the other group just watched a boring video like paint drying or grass growing or something like that. And what the study found was the people who just watched the video of Mother Teresa, that their immune system levels were boosted while watching and remained elevated for a full hour after.
Hmm.
So what I would say is Mother Teresa wins on that because imagine that's the power of just having watched a video of somebody else being kind, that we have this physiological reaction, this medical miracle. It's like taking a vitamin, and it boosts our immune system and stays elevated. So we're designed to be kind. And so in that aspect, I would say that's how powerful it is if you just watch it. Imagine how powerful it can be if you actually do it.
Mm. And it brings out another point when you say we're designed. I know you're you've got a Christian background. I mean, for those who don't kind of believe in that higher power, certainly it's not an issue for them to be kind as well.
Absolutely not. I mean, that's what all of these medical studies show too, that
Mm.
whether you believe in God or not, the way our bodies work, the way we react
Mm.
to kindness or being in an environment of kindness is all positive and it's all necessary.
Mm.
There's another study that was done that talks about low job control and the effects that it can have on people and in the workplace. So let me ask you, what do you suppose low job control is? What is that to you?
When I hear low job control, I think it's something where you're micromanaged. You have a standard operating procedure. You have SOPs that you have to conduct all your tasks in.
Absolutely. And the way it was defined in the study is very much like that, but they add a couple of things to it. If you have no hope of promotion or growth, so it could be like
Mm.
you can't move up in the company or you just can't improve. Like education isn't a part of your career path. They just want you to sit there, do your task, and be quiet. That's it. So that's one aspect. The other aspect would be like in the micromanaging aspect, where you are encountering a situation over and over and you think, I've got a solution to this. I keep encountering this problem. Hey, Mr. Manager. Hey, Miss Boss. Can we change this? Can we get an extra headcount so we can solve this? Or can we purchase this tool that will fix it? Or if we do it in this other way, can we, just offering some feedback to the problem that you face daily? If the answer is always no, just deal with it.
Hmm.
That's low job control. that you have no say and there's no education, no room for advancement.
Wow.
If you are in that situation, you are almost 2.5 times as likely to develop heart disease.
Wow.
And so the idea is that it's not just about our moral compass, it's about, are we actually providing a healthy environment for our employees or for the people that we are leading? Because if you aren't contributing to it, you're definitely causing it. And so, the old expression of my job is killing me, it rings true in this situation. And so leaders need to be very aware of the influence that they have over their people for that type of environment.
Very interesting. Your book, Empowering Kindness, you cite a lot of these, a lot of these experiments, and one I enjoyed was kind of the three groups: the couch potato, the selfish, and the benevolent, and what happens there. And you continue to these experiments continue to prove the thesis that being kindness is just physically and mentally healthy for you.
Oh, absolutely. And just to expand on that study too, it was that so they were looking at, does kindness affect us from a longevity standpoint, how long we live? And they studied a group of people who did nothing, who were
Mm,
just the couch potato, as you said. They studied a group of people who did it just to look good on like magazine covers or social media, right? And then they studied the group who legitimately did not care for a reward. They were doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They wanted to be kind, expecting nothing in return. And they found that the people who did it out of the goodness of their heart, they had a life expectancy of an extra 4 years or something like that. Meanwhile, the group who did it for the PR, just for social media, or the couch
mm.
potatoes, had zero change. So you have to do it for the right reasons. We can't trick our bodies into thinking, "Oh no, no, no! I'm just going to go and I'll do it, and I'll get the photo op and all that sort of stuff, and I'll still benefit from it." Our heart of hearts knows what we're doing it for, and we can't trick our brains into releasing those positive chemicals if our motivation is off.
Very, very interesting. And if we talk about being kind and talk about being even kind of benevolent, we have to talk about the opposite, right? We have to talk about just, evil. And uh,
Mhm.
do you feel that like true evil exists? Do you think some people are just not capable of kindness?
Um, I wouldn't say that. I would say that evil does exist, and it is absolutely heartbreaking. Um, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that people all there are people out there who are incapable of being kind.
Mm,
I think that it is entirely a choice. Now, again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not coming at from a standpoint of, well, what about people with mental health issues that really take them down the path of being incapable of making good choices? There's a study of, oh, I'm trying to think of the guy's name now because this was a little. I don't talk about it in my book, I don't believe, but I have spoken about it before. But as far as there was this guy who was working on the railroad, and a railroad spike took out part of his brain, like physically. And from then on, he had almost zero emotional capabilities, and as a result, could not make decisions.
mm,
And in my book, I do talk about the idea of a gut feeling and how we have more neurons attached to our gut than we do even in our brain. And so there is this idea of us in almost every decision making it based on emotions. And the way our brain works is we are going to go through a history of all of our previous experiences and what we know about a subject matter before we make a decision.
Hmm.
And some people will say, no, it's all intellectual. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. So a long time ago, my wife and I, we were house shopping, and we went into like one house, and it was like, nah, not the one. Another house, another house, another house. Finally, we went into this one house, and she walked in and she said, "This is our home."
Hmm.
But it wasn't. There's another family's photo still hanging on the wall. We didn't buy it yet, but she had that gut feeling. Years of growing up knowing what she wanted in that situation, what home to buy, that then she felt it in a moment.
Hmm.
All that history of information and knowledge. And we have those gut instincts, those gut reactions. And going back to the example of that railroad worker, he turned out to be just a terrible, terrible individual because the capabilities of emotions was removed, and so therefore his decision making capabilities were also removed. He could not make clear and good decisions. Now, going back to that initial question of, is there evil in the world? Yes, I believe so. Are there people who are incapable of kindness? I want to say no, because we all have the capability to use our emotions in any situation and to use our past experiences to direct us in a positive way when we are shown that way. And, I think back to the play Death of a Salesman as well. And in that play, the main character, he's portrayed as being, kind of a neglectful father.
Beautiful.
And at the end of the play, he dies, and you're left as an audience member thinking like, well, what will become of his sons if that was the example they had? And I remember being in high school and being on a debate about that topic. And I had, one team got up and said, no, he wasn't of influence of his children. And I got up and I had to argue the opposite side, that he was an influence on his children, because his children were able to say, I don't want to end up like that.
Mm.
Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, he gets, visited by the ghosts. And at the end, he decides, I don't want to end up like what was shown to be by the ghost of Christmas future. I want to change. And so that's really the mission of this book, is to give people an insight into the impact that being kind has, and to choose that, to make sure that you are a leader who is focused on growing your people, who is focused on making kindness a part of your character, like being the number one trait that you can possess, so that everything else then lines up through that lens and you make decisions based on that. And so then when you are presented the choices of good versus evil, you're going to stop and look at that through the lens of kindness and then choose good.
Hmm.
And so that would be what I would say to that. I know that was a lot I threw
I
out there
loved it.
on you.
I loved it. But even Hitler loved his dogs, right? They say he was a dog lover. It's the whole question of, does pure evil exist, and can people be kind? It intrigues me, because also the notion of, is kindness selfless? Oftentimes when I am kind, I feel that I'm rewarded immediately by just the offering and by the reception of it, and the act of it. So we might also want to question that as well. That is it completely selfless because you do feel good about it? Kind of like when you go to the gym and the first 4 or 5 minutes are the worst, right? Getting into the car or walking there, but as soon as you're halfway in it, man, you feel great, and afterwards, you don't ever want that feeling to end. I wonder if it's similar just to kindness, because it feels so rewarding, and it feels good, and it's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, but then there are also moments, Joe, where you are kind and you are doing the right thing, and there is not that reward.
Mm.
In fact, you may experience the exact opposite. And that is where it takes that, and this, your podcast is themed on discipline,
Yes.
right? And so to me, I look at this as a method of discipline where you acknowledge what is the right pathway to go down. And then no matter the results, you take that pathway. And to me, part of it could be that, I recently have been writing kind of a series of blogs comparing Superman to Clark Kent, and when we choose to be Superman or choose to be Clark Kent.
Hmm.
And I talk about that in environments or in situations where problem solving needs to take place, it's better to be a Clark Kent. Ask great questions of your team. Be inquisitive. Get them to feel to push forward their ideas instead of being like Superman and walking in the meeting and saying, "Here's the idea. I'm saving the day,"
Hmm.
because then you never allow your team to grow. Now, Superman does need to rush in and save the day when an employee is being treated unfairly, or when somebody skews the culture and takes a big detour from the way that you want your organization to actually be run. You run in, you come to the defense of that employee. Now, the idea behind that is then, with in those situations, that Superman who swoops in and saves the day for the one employee, that is not a fun conversation to have. If you have to sit down with somebody who is supposed to be a leader in your company, who took a far detour off the path of the culture of the way they should be treating people around there, there's nothing enjoyable about that.
Hmm.
Yet there's nothing kinder than that,
Hmm.
to make sure you're bringing people back on the right path or protecting others. And so that idea of, you're not always going to be in a situation where, hey, I'm immediately rewarded. Oh, wow, I did this nice thing. I did this kind thing. Now a parade will be thrown in my honor. Sometimes we are never thanked for the kind things that we do. And yet, like the theme of this podcast, your whole show of discipline, to
Hmm.
know I know the path that I will take, whether I feel like it or not, whether I get a pat on the back or not, I know the right way to go and I'm going to take it. Joe, you tell of your weight loss journey of losing, what was it, 130
Yeah.
pounds?
Yep.
Okay. And did going to the gym become a part of that journey?
Of course.
Okay. Were there days that, and do you go to the gym in the morning?
Yes.
All right. Were there days you woke up and thought, I don't want to go to the gym?
Of course.
Okay. But you knew the right thing to do and you followed through with it. When you got to the gym, you started getting your pump on and you said, the first few minutes weren't that great, but then you would start to feel good. You're glad you did it. But did anybody, like, did a personal trainer walk by and be like, man, looking swole today?
Every once in a while, but not very often. No. And I
Okay.
wasn't doing it for
So,
them. I was doing it for me. Right.
right. And that's the thing about kindness too, is that sometimes, yeah, it'll feel good because you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But there will be other times when no parade is thrown in your honor, but you still need to do the right thing. There's many times that kindness takes place behind closed doors, and no one should know that you are helping another individual, but you still do it nonetheless.
Under the kindness umbrella, do you find, benevolence and humility and being humble and being, like you mentioned, being, having a servant type leadership attitude? Like, do you really find that kindness is kind of the head of that, and everything else kind of along with it falls under? And does it take a strong discipline to maintain all that?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think that, kindness is very much coupled with empathy,
Yeah.
where you have an insight into how others are feeling so that then you can understand and use kindness to say, okay, I see that they're in this situation. I see that they're dealing with this, or this is the type of personality they have. This is how, and then you use kindness to say, now I'm going to fill in the gap.
Mm,
I'm going to come alongside them and help them out, or I'm going to provide service to them, uh, so that I, can be kind to them and help them. And so I think that there is that coupling. And the reason why I feel like kindness is like at the apex, or maybe the chief ingredient
mm,
of it all, is because that's where the action takes place. You could be very empathetic towards someone and never take action. Like the people who witness another kid getting picked on in the playground.
mm.
They could be very empathetic. Oh, that poor kid. Oh, I feel so bad for them. But kindness is the step that you take, the action you take to step in and protect. And then also that idea of not necessarily always getting rewarded, not always getting thanked, uh, but then the kindness, that action, to know that it is the right thing to do, that it's part of your character, then that helps you to continue on with that discipline, with that motivation, whether you get rewarded or not, whether you get celebrated or not.
Yeah, because there are times where, you're being treated unkindly and, things happen in the regular stages of life that aren't positive, and it's hard. It's difficult to be kind after that. And another form I think we need to talk about is just being kind to yourself. We see so many
Mhm.
people who are in, that, we mentioned my weight, overweight, obesity is a major issue in our country. The numbers are about 75% of obesity and plus overweight. I wonder, do you ever discuss that? Just being kind of kind to yourself, looking inward before going outward.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that, I think I speak about it in my book, of the idea of first, I use the comparison of becoming a runner.
Mm.
Like, you don't just get up one day and say, hey, I'm running a marathon today, and throw on your, compression socks and away you go. And if you're not a runner, me saying compression socks, you'd be like, well, that's a thing. I need to get some of those. So there's different stages of recognizing kindness before it becomes a part of your character, becomes a part of your trait. Like, first you got to say, okay, it exists, right? You acknowledge it. Then you have to get to a stage of, oh, that's right. Then you have to get to a stage of, oh, that's right for me. Like, much like, you talk about the weight loss journey. I've been trying to lose a little bit of weight myself. And there was a certain point where my wife was coming to me and she's like, hey, do you want to start eating healthy again? And I was like, nah, not yet. I know it's good for you in the general sense of human beings. It's good to eat healthy, but I'm really enjoying these like peanut butter cookies that you've been picking up at the grocery store, and I don't want to stop those yet. It wasn't until then I said, okay, it's right for me, that I then proceed down that pathway. And from there, then it can't be just like the random acts of kindness. Okay, I'm going to do it once. It needs to become a habit. The more you do it, and then also you invite others along with it, so that it becomes you can introduce it to others. You talk about it. You start wearing the apparel. You sign up for marathons. You get the medals. I have actually couple of half marathon medals hanging here,
Nice.
but I'm not a runner anymore because I tweaked my back and just had way too much pain, and so I had to give it up.
Yeah.
But while I was running, man, oh man, when I got those free t-shirts from the run, I was wearing them every chance I got. Even mowing the grass, I'm wearing I did it half marathon, right? Because then you get into that fandom, you get into that mentality of it becoming a part of your character. Now, you said a couple of things too that in lead up to that question, where you said, kindness is hard, and I definitely agree with you that it can be hard, but it is that mentality of recognizing the right thing to do and then pushing yourself to do it, that it becomes greater reward. And so going through those different stages of recognizing too, it's not just going to happen overnight. You aren't going to wake up one day and just say, hey, you know what? I want this to be a part of my character. And so I'm paying for somebody behind me in the Starbucks
Hmm.
line. Boom, got it. Check it off. Like it's all about too that idea of empathy ahead of it so that you are observant of being kind to others. And when I talk about kindness being hard too, that there are elements like you mentioned too, the idea of like somebody could be treating you unkind ongoing, and that can be terrible.
Hmm.
And I always like to think of that situation because I've been in that situation before. As a kid, I got bullied terribly. And in the work environment too, that bullies still exist, and they can make your life miserable if they are treating you poorly. And so the way I look at it is, well, the phrase "kill them with kindness."
Hmm.
To me, it's not about, oh, good, I can get some revenge. I'm going to be nice to them. And that's really going to, as the old expression goes, heap coals of fire on their head. That it doesn't work that way. The way I look at it is more like the Ebenezer Scrooge aspect of kill them with kindness, is show them a better way so that they would choose to put to death their old character and take on the new character of treating people well. And I think that that is a powerful revelation for leaders, because there may be and I'm sure of it. I know it. There are leaders out there who think they are killing it because they are pushing people out of their way over and over so that they can advance. And they're like, yeah, another successful day. I knocked somebody else out of the way. If they can be shown that, man, I tried to knock this person down and they stayed up
Hmm.
and they never faltered. What is going on with that person? How can I sideline them and they try over and over and over again, but they can never push you down? They come to a day, you hope that they come to a day of revelation. And I have seen it happen where they wake up and they say, what am I doing? Why am I trying it this way? It is much better to help others than try to take them down. And so when you talk about being in a situation where you are not being treated kindly, that it is hard, you're absolutely right, but you're still on the right path to show others what they can do. And then you also talk about kindness to self, and that is so important. Going back to the analogy that I often use about leaders being that tall, healthy apple tree, that trees also are able to take sunlight and produce their own food. And so to be kind to ourselves, also, it's to acknowledge what we need in order to grow ourselves, what we need to nourish ourselves, because we are not going to be capable of producing good fruit for others. Like the apple tree won't be able to produce good apples for others if they aren't first taking care of themselves and cultivating themselves. And so that's very much a big part of making sure that we provide kindness to others, is considering yourself as well.
Where did your road or your journey to kindness begin, Nathan?
Well, it started when I was a kid, and my dad was a letter carrier, and he knew everybody on his mail route. And he would come home after work and change into work clothes, grab a toolbox, get me after school, and take me out to go do things for strangers.
Hmm.
And so there were like little old ladies who needed their garage cleaned out. There was a time when I did painting for an old lady, when I was loading stuff up in a truck to take it to the dump because her brother passed away. And so my entire childhood of basically the most memories I have of spending time with my dad was in service to others and
Wow.
helping others. And so now, as I'm older and I'm in the corporate world, And I've experienced it, and I think that many people have experienced the uncertainty or the lack of security it comes with having a job, right? You think you're in a safe space, and then something can happen tomorrow where you're no longer needed, or the company restructures, or we go through COVID and you don't have a job anymore, or all of those things. So the certainty is there is no certainty,
Mm.
basically. And there was a moment where I was looking around and I was seeing people who were not kind, who were just looking out for themselves, and it seemed like they had more security than I did.
Hmm.
And in that moment I asked myself, because I was putting my kids to bed, and I'd lay down with them until they fall asleep, then I sneak out of the room. And while I'm lying there, I'm thinking, am I doing this wrong? Should I be more manipulative to increase my job security? And then I kept thinking about my dad. And the answer just kept coming back saying, no, no, don't go down that path. And so I decided, okay, like you've already mentioned it, that faith is a big part of who I am.
Mm.
And there's a Bible verse in Ephesians 2:10 that says God created us and he created good works that we should walk in them. And so I looked at that and I was thinking about that a lot and wondering, okay, if we are created for good works, there should be some modern evidence out there now that shows that this is true. And that's where I started at first, just as a hobby, like diving into medical studies, case studies of businesses to say, if a leader is kind, is that the way to go? Are we going to be more successful? Do we benefit from it? And that's where I started uncovering study after study after study. And so while, it is for me a reassurance of my faith, it still doesn't, just because, it's coming from a place of faith for me, doesn't mean it's any less true for the medical studies that took place that prove that it's true as well. So then I assembled it all under kind of one big theme and wrote the book, Empowering Kindness, and released it. And my hope was to kind of bring the message to different leadership events and speak at events. And it was like a couple months after I released the book, COVID happened and all events shut down everywhere.
Mm.
And so then I just started, speaking about the book on different podcasts, things like that. And now with events opening back up, I have had some opportunities to go speak for different leadership teams and for companies. And I look forward to doing more of that in the future. I have a few more things lined up in the near term, and have, like anybody else, have leads in the funnel to be working on, and to find more opportunities to go speak about this topic.
Do you consider yourself a disciplined person?
I would say yes and no. I feel like, because to me, there's two different types of personalities when it comes to discipline.
Hmm.
There's the John Maxwell description of discipline, where he basically gives it this analogy where you have a forest in your backyard, and discipline is when you want to clear that forest, it's going out in the backyard every single day, picking one tree to start with, and you do 10 chops on that one tree. Go back inside, come back the next day, 10 more chops. Back, keep going until that one tree falls, then move on to the next one. So his is very much consistency all the time. That's his style of discipline. Other people are like, hey, I have this big project I want to work on. I'm going to kind of shut things down in a few other areas so that I can just throw myself into this project. And so, and in some aspect, that is discipline. But
Mm.
to others, they look at that and they say, no, that's procrastination. And that's just, hopping from one thing to the next. So, in some aspects, there are things in my life where I take that John Maxwell approach, where it is consistency over and over. There are other things, though, that I'm excited about a project. And so I dive headfirst into it and really engross myself in that for that time.
Very interesting. And what motivates you, Nathan Caldwell? Motivates you?
My kids, absolutely. Like they're uh, every thought that I have is how can I be a positive influence for my
Hmm.
kids? What can I do to teach them? How can I put a smile on their face or make them laugh, provide them with wisdom so that they can be successful, so that they can have joy as well, so that they can build their faith stronger. Uh, and so yeah, definitely. I look at my kids, and that's everything that I want to invest in.
Similar
So
how?
even success in career or things like that, there when you and I first met, I was very, very excited about advancing my career.
Right.
And that is like, what can I do to just like be more of a leader? What can I do? What can I volunteer for? Raise my hand for all that sort of stuff. Man, oh man, when my kids came along, it is entirely how can I spend more time with my kids? How can I get home faster? My job, I want to keep it in a very healthy way. I want to be very successful in my job. I want to do incredibly well with my job, but I don't want my job to stop me from having time with my kids
Right.
either.
Right. Yeah. Parenthood just brings on a whole different, reflection in life and a whole new kind of level of discipline. Uh,
Mhm.
and so you kind of alluded to it, but then how do you measure success?
Well, so for me, I spoke there's somebody who gave me like uh an incredible way to look at it. He's like, kill it in all areas.
Hmm.
When you're at work, kill it at work so that you did amazing and you can shut down your computer and then go be with your kids and kill it there. And when it's the weekend time, just kill it.
Hmm.
Like be there with your family, do the things. And to me, success does not have to be huge dollar signs. It doesn't have to be notoriety. And even with the in the family context too, like success doesn't have to be, oh, we spent like tens of thousands of dollars on this incredible vacation. And so you all better enjoy it because
Hmm.
I spent a whole ton on it. Like success for that can be, hey, the kids want to set up the tent in the backyard and have like our own little campfire. Like whatever delights you and your family, go after it and don't let other people's standards creep in. There's an awesome book, and the title is just powerful enough in its own, and it's called Love Your Life, Not Theirs. And it's written by Rachel Cruz. And the whole concept is nowadays we have social media, and so you can always look to not just down the street and see what your neighbors are up to and compare yourself to them, or compare yourself to the people at work. You can compare yourself to people in other countries too. You can compare yourself to everyone you went to college with and no longer even speak to.
Hmm.
And so the idea is to just make it your own. Know what success is for you. And to me, right now, success is, doing a great job at work, definitely making sure that I am contributing in all the amazing ways that I could possibly contribute with generating new ideas or speaking at events, utilizing my talents in a way that I feel like are best used for the company. And then when I'm looking at this idea of speaking on the topic of kindness, where I'm, starting out on my own to step out on stage and speak about a topic that I've written about, uh, success to me is sharing that message with others and
Hmm.
making sure that it has an impact. And so getting feedback from people to say, and another speaker friend of mine gave me excellent advice on this. He said, after you're done with any speech, if people come up to you and say, hey, great job, really loved it, say, hey, can I ask you a favor? What was something specifically that helped you?
Mm,
And so that's at times that's greater success than the paycheck, because then you're uncovering exactly how you helped another individual.
mm,
And that is a beautiful thing that can stick in your mind way longer than dollars sticking in your bank account. And then going back to family and understanding, success is putting down your phone and being with your kids. Success is your kids excited to tell you about their day or spending time with you, engaging with them on the things that they want to do rather than having to push them aside to finish what you should have finished at work that day, and or push them aside because you're like, no, I just want to relax. Uh, Like, to me, I feel like, that idea of motivation and discipline to like get up and work out is the same voice in your head that says, no, get off the couch and play with the kids,
mm.
or like get home right now to be with the kids and do the things that they want to do.
Nathan, what an absolute pleasure talking to you today. If I can, be gracious as well and say, if those listening, if those that read your book can extend kindness, in their workplace, in their home, in their family, in their, just in the general society, really and truly, we all win.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because you never know what impact you're going to have on another individual. And kindness is the way to get there.
Mm,
Um, I often I shared this story in my book where I used to be a teacher and I had a student and she was in my class, and it was like she was there for grade 2 or grade 3. Flash forward, she's graduating from high school, and my mother-in-law, to bring her back into the story, she saw something on Facebook. She's like, "Hey Nathan, somebody's talking about you on Facebook." And I was like, "Oh wow, all right, I'll go check it out." And it was this young girl's mom saying like, "Thanks to Nathan Caldwell for influencing my daughter and setting her on the path that she wants to take for the rest of her life.
mm.
She is now she has a scholarship, she's going to university, and she chose this major all because of the influence that Nathan had on her." I had no clue.
Mm.
Like, when she was my student, I didn't know I made a big impact on her at all, that she would then choose the path of her career or education because of the impact that I had on her. And so that is to the message of kindness, in that aspect that you also brought up. Like, sometimes we aren't rewarded for it. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes, there's a big theme right now, especially out there, that says make sure you are offering gratitude to people because we hear it too few times in our
That's
lives.
right.
And so you may not ever hear back from the impact you have. And also, kindness can be a very slow burn, where it's over years and years and years that finally, then that one little piece of advice that you gave to somebody, or the example that you set for somebody, they come back to you years later and say, you know what, you may not realize this, but I've been thinking about that for years,
Mm.
and it's really shaped me, and I just wanted you to know that. And so the idea is to make sure that, as you're saying, to ask people to consider making it a part of their career, making it a part of their family life, because you never know the huge impact that it can have on someone.
Absolutely. And it doesn't cost you emotionally to be kind. It doesn't cost you physically. It's not burdensome. If you make it part of your daily activity or part of your routine, it just will happen naturally and it benefits everyone, like you said, and it's physically healthy for you. It's mentally, it's emotionally. There's really no bad effects.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Nathan Call, what a pleasure to speak to you today. I hope that everybody listening, watching, and reading your book just can put it forward and just spread that around. And it's a great message. It's a great um, feeling. It's a great feeling, like I said, to push forward, and you do a really good job of 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 looking at the science and the kind of art of it in your book, and it's written well, and it's I know it took you a long time to do, and it's well worth it. Tell us how we can get in touch with you. I'll put some show notes in, but how can we get the book, and how can we all get in touch with you, Nathan Caldwell?
I appreciate that. Yeah, so I have a website and it is www.empoweringkindness.com. And then I would also love to connect with people on LinkedIn if you're so inclined. And then my book is available for purchase on Amazon, and the book is titled Empowering Kindness. But if you were to go to my website, there's also a button there where you can just click on it and it'll take you there straight to the book so you can order it. Um, and then my website is set up to also showcase a few video clips of me speaking
Yes.
at events. And so if you are inclined to have a leadership event, or it doesn't even have to be just the leaders, but I've spoken at events where they bring in the whole employee base as kind of a cultural experience, company culture. And so if you're so inclined, if you have an opportunity for an event like that, I would be honored to come speak at your event.
Yeah, and it shows the a great video of you there at Dollywood, and speaking, and then speaking to people afterwards. That was put together really, really well. Nathan, thanks so much for your time today. I look forward to seeing you again face to face. We'll have another breakfast together, and I look forward to it. Thanks again so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on your show.
Be well. Bye now. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.